After awakening the martial soul, Dream Yuan became numb. According to the original plot plan, with the help of my grandfather's dream divine machine, I should slowly conquer Thousand Blade Snow and then reach the pinnacle of my life. Now that I am doing well, I have been adopted as my own disciple by Chrysanthemum and Ghost Douluo, and have suddenly become a person who dislikes dogs. Bibidong does not trust himself because his grandfather is enshrined in the Heavenly Dou royal family, let alone the protagonist group. The origin of the martial soul hall is original sin for the current situation of being forced to become a villain. Others cannot rely on it and must choose to save themselves. The first step to self-rescue is to start with planning the eyes of the ice and fire 2 instruments. The next step is to brainwash Tang San in advance and let him replace me to attract firepower. Utilize the characteristics of martial souls to become the ancestor of evil soul masters, create your own camp, and take a different path. Chapter 1. Martial Soul Awakening. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Today, it is Platinum Archbishop Salas who awakens the martial souls of children in the Martial Soul Hall of Qianjia Imperial City. The reason why this bishop personally came to awaken the martial souls of the children is because the little princess of the Heavenly Dou royal family has arrived. The face of the royal family must be given. The purpose of the royal family coming here is to demonstrate their close relationship with the Martial Soul Hall. As the grandson of the Heavenly Dou royal family who worships the Dream Divine Machine, Dream Yuan is qualified to awaken his martial soul together with this esteemed His Highness. Like other children, Men Yuan stood in the crowd, holding hands tightly and looking very nervous. In Douluo continent, the most important moment in a person's life is the moment when their martial soul awakens after the age of 6. Here, human destiny is predetermined. The innate soul power level and martial soul quality determine a person's upper limit. Under the angel statue in the center of the main hall, Platinum Archbishop Salas said solemnly, "Your Highness, please place your hand on this ball." The little lowly with light golden hair was a bit scared. She looked back and the blond man sitting on the chair nodded, showing her a gentle smile. Xiaolulai took a deep breath and then followed Sarah's instructions to place her hand on the crystal ball. Suddenly, a surge of momentum erupted. Her whole body was warm, as if something had wrapped her up. The next second, a loud cry echoed on the church, and a golden swan phantom appeared behind the little princess Xueqing. The swan stretched out its wings, emitting a sacred aura. Obviously, the little princess's martial soul had not mutated, and her martial soul was still the swan that had been passed down by the royal family for a long time. Sarah's serious expression relaxed slightly as he smiled and said to Snow, "Your Highness, concentrate and inject your soul power into this crystal ball." Xueqing closed her eyes and worked hard to control her soul power, pouring it into the crystal ball. The crystal ball emitted a dazzling light. Saras exclaimed in surprise, "Innate soul power level 8, a very powerful talent. If your Highness is willing to work hard, there is a chance of being titled Douluo in this lifetime." Unfortunately, although the innate soul power is strong, compared to powerful martial souls like Phoenix and Phoenix, the Swan martial soul is not outstanding. It's still a bit difficult to take the last step. A hint of joy flashed in Xueqing's pale golden eyes, and she happily threw herself into the arms of the blonde young man, saying, "Prince, what's up? I just told you not to worry." Crown Prince Xueqing's eyes flashed with a cold light, and then she smiled and touched Xueqing's head, saying, "Ah Ku, don't be proud. Although your innate soul power is high, it is influenced by the quality of martial souls. You need to work harder than others." Looking at the outstanding talent of the little princess, Men Yuan was both surprised and envious. The 8th level of innate soul power can be said to be 1 in 1,000, and his grandfather's innate soul power is only 7 levels. According to the research of Dream Divine Machine, there is a small probability of soul power breaking through the title Douluo at level 7 or above. However, it is almost impossible to break through level 95 for life, and most people will get stuck in the soul Douluo. Those with soul power above level 8 have a high probability of becoming title Douluo, and there is a small probability of breaking through level 95 or above. Soul power at level 9 is bound to become a title Douluo, with a high probability of exceeding level 95. Those with innate soul power have an unlimited future if they can grow up. After sending beautiful blessings to the little princess, Archbishop Salas did not stop his work, but continued to awaken the martial souls of the remaining children. Today's luck is good. The best blind box he has ever opened in his life is just a little guy with innate soul power level 6. Maybe he can win a big prize today. What Saras is most concerned about is that before today, he had not awakened a person with innate soul power above level 7. Unfortunately, the rest was not satisfactory. The highest innate soul power is only level 6, far inferior to the little princess. The last one, Dream Abyss. Finally, it was her turn. Yuan took a deep breath and then walked toward Salas. And the Dream Divine Machine beside the Crown Prince Xueqing River couldn't help but become nervous. He, who has a deep understanding of martial souls, naturally knows how important innate soul power is, which completely determines a person's future. There is no need to worry about the martial soul quality of the Dream family, the only thing to worry about is this initial talent. Place your hand on the crystal ball and appreciate it carefully. Yuan followed the instructions and placed his hand on the crystal ball. Suddenly, a cold and gloomy aura emanated from the body, and the entire main hall of the martial soul hall was shrouded in shadows. Many timid children were even frightened and cried. Prince brother. Xue could tightly grasp Xueqing's hand. Xueqing, on the other hand, hugged his sister and couldn't help but frown. She disliked this aura very much. With a loud cry of phoenixes, the blood-colored flower composed of soul power instantly bloomed throughout the entire hall. A black and red phoenix phantom appeared behind Dream Abyss, emitting an extremely strong pressure. Xueqing's body couldn't help but tremble. It was not fear, but the absolute intimidation of the superior martial soul over the subordinate martial soul. Other children who awaken the spirit of bird martial arts are even more unbearable, and some even cannot withstand the pressure and fainted directly. Xueqing's expression was extremely solemn, and there was only one similar awakening of her martial soul in her memory. That was when I awakened my martial soul at the age of 6, and it was obvious that this martial soul had the potential to be a divine martial soul. Dream Divine Machine, on the other hand, had a glimmer of brilliance in its eyes. Phoenix, it seems to have followed his mother. At this moment, Yuan slowly opened his eyes. Saras couldn't help but frown. The aura emanating from the martial soul made him very uncomfortable, to the point where it diluted the joy of the blind box winning the prize. Child, what is the name of your martial soul? Prison Blood Dark Phoenix. This name was told to him by his martial soul. At this moment, Yuan was very excited. As a traveler, he naturally knew that innate soul power was determined by the quality of the martial soul. The illusion of awakening the blood underworld phoenix in the prison has proven the extraordinary nature of this martial soul, and his innate soul power is definitely not low. Saras took a deep breath and said in a calm tone, "Inject your soul power into the crystal ball." Yuan nodded and then controlled his soul power to surge towards the crystal ball. The crystal ball instantly flashed with a dazzling light. This is innate full soul power. Saras had a hint of shock in his eyes, and at the same time, there was a strong murderous aura in his eyes. Ha ha ha, fun and interesting. The top-notch soul master with death attributes is really the best gift from heaven to me. Suddenly, a black gloomy wind blew up. After the black wind dissipated in front of the angel statue, a burly man appeared in front of Dream Abyss. He looks in his 40s, with deep eyes and a strange purple pattern on his face. He exudes a cold and gloomy aura that is very similar to Dream Abyss. TSK TSK TSK, one soul twin, one flower and one bird each. At such a young age, this is the first time I have seen such a unique martial soul. This is truly a disciple bestowed upon me and the old ghost by heaven. Outside the main hall, a beautiful woman in white walked slowly from outside. He exuded a faint chrysanthemum fragrance, and with every step he took, a soul ring rose behind him. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 black. 9 soul rings were floating around, and the terrifying aura crushed everyone in the hall to the ground. Elder Ghost, Elder Chrysanthemum. Saras respectfully bowed, facing the title Douluo. He dared not show any arrogance, even if they belonged to the same camp. The dream divine machine summoned its own martial soul, the black demon, and walked to the dream abyss under the pressure of the 2 titled Douluo. Cold sweat kept flowing down from his forehead, and he said respectfully with a dreamy expression, under Guamian and Jumian, please give me face and don't make things difficult for my grandson. Chrysanthemum Douluo Yuan chuckled lightly, but Li didn't even have a dream trick. He just stared at Meng Yuan and asked, Kid, I'm asking you, are you willing to worship me and the old ghost as teachers? Looking at the unfriendly gaze of Saras and the contemplative expression on Xueqing's face, Meng Yuan didn't hesitate at all and knelt down on the ground with a thud. Master is up, please accept my disciple's bow. Internal investment has passed, feel free to invest in addition. The protagonist's martial soul is inherited from his mother, Xueqing, the principal of Qianjia Academy. Its attributes belong to the dream family, so don't ask why it has nothing to do with the black demon of the dream family. Chapter 2. Apprenticeship Title. You are listening at novel full.audio. 2 titled Douluo appear to accept themselves as disciples, how dare they refuse directly. Meng Yuan, who has seen Douluo continent, knows that if he dares to directly reject these 2 people, next year's today may be his death day. Didn't you see that my old man couldn't withstand the pressure released by Ju Douluo before activating his martial soul? Moreover, to be honest, learning from Ju and Gui is not a disadvantage. These 2 are both genuine title Douluo with a level of 90 or above. How could they be stronger than the teacher Yu Shaojiang who has not exceeded level 30? More importantly, Ju Douluo Yuan is one of the few people on the mainland who is proficient in pharmacological knowledge. This involves a major adventure of the future protagonist group, the Ice and Fire Eye. Without the help of Chrysanthemum Douluo, it was not easy to plunder that adventure in advance in order to grasp the clues of the immortal product. Meng Xinji looked at his grandson who had decisively apprenticed, and also let out a slight sigh. In recent years, the style of behavior of the martial soul hall has become increasingly extreme. He is not very willing to get involved with the martial soul hall, but now the situation is stronger than others. Even if he is unwilling, he can only do so. After seeing Meng Yuan kneeling down decisively to pay his respects, Yuan nodded with satisfaction and said, you can teach a child, he is a smart child. And Gui Douluo's ghostly and gloomy face couldn't help but show a smile. Since you are willing to worship us as teachers, we will naturally teach you well. Although Ju Guan and I are 2 people, our relationship is so close that we are inseparable. You can call him a teacher, but you also have to call me a teacher. On the Douluo continent, only one teacher who has passed down the tradition can be worshipped. The relationship between master and disciple is the closest apart from parents. Yuan glanced at Xueqing and then smiled, saying, I didn't expect His Highness the Crown Prince to be here too. If it's impolite, I hope His Highness can forgive me. You are polite, but Ju Douluo's movements are quite arrogant. Ghost Douluo has an attitude of ignoring Xueqing. This made Xueqing a little angry, but he still forced his anger to bow to the 2 of them and said, I didn't expect to meet Jumian Xia and Guamian Xia here. What's going on in the imperial city when you both crown? May I ask if you need the help of the royal family? Yuan said with a calm expression, Your Highness, I won't bother about our personal matters. Upon hearing this, Xueqing's face turned cold and he didn't hesitate to leave with Xueqing. As soon as the crown prince Xueqing left, the nobles who accompanied the children to awaken their martial souls in the palace dared not stay any longer and quickly ran away clean. Only Platinum Archbishop Salis and Dream Abyss Grandfather Dream Divine Machine remain. Gui Douluo looked at Mengxinji displeased and said, "Why, aren't you leaving?" Yuan smiled and asked, "Aren't you afraid that the two of us, Douluo, won't teach your grandson well?" Mengxinji opened his mouth and watched as Meng Yuan hesitated to speak. Finally, he sighed and said, "Of course, I can rest assured. My grandson will be entrusted to the two crown servants for guidance. The child is still young, and if there is any disrespect, I hope they can take care of it more." Zhu Douluo chuckled lightly and said, "That's easy to say. I think this little guy is very clever, and he definitely won't make us angry for no reason." Gui Douluo said with his hands behind his back, "You can leave now." "Wait." Yuan suddenly spoke up and said, "There is one more thing that requires Brother Meng's help for the two of us to work together." Dream Divine Machine arched his hand helplessly and said, "Please speak under Chrysanthemum Crown." Zhu Douluo narrowed his eyes slightly, his beautiful eyes full of a sense of solemnity. "Brother Meng will know then." Mengxinji hesitated for a moment, but still didn't dare to refuse Zhu Douluo's request. He said to Meng Yuan, "Yuaner, in the future, you should listen to the teachings of the two crown bearers well. The martial soul city is not as reckless as your family." Meng Yuan nodded and said reluctantly, "Grandpa, don't worry, my grandson knows. The situation is stronger than people, and this continent is like this." Everyone chose to ignore Dream Yuan's arrangement. Although his talent is good, he is not a strong one. Only geniuses who have grown up are worth valuing. Otherwise, it can only be called a fallen genius. After the dream machine left, the spacious hall was left with Sulla. Saras bowed and asked, "Elders, do you have any other orders?" The ghost said expressionlessly, "When I need you, I will naturally call out to you. Now you should go." "Yes." Saras didn't say a word of nonsense and left the main hall directly. Meanwhile, Zhu Douluo Yuan smiled and said to Meng Yuan, "The idle have all left. As our disciple, you don't have to worry. Now let's talk about your martial soul first." "Yes, teacher." As the words fell, Dream Abyss summoned his own martial soul. A black and red phoenix surrounded the Dream Abyss, and a crimson flower on the other side also appeared in his hand. Yes, this is the uniqueness of the Dream Abyss martial soul. A flower and a bird, a soul and twin. This state is not so much twin as companion. The prison blood dark phoenix goes without saying, as the dominant phoenix in bird martial souls, it belongs to the top group regardless of its attributes. And its unique talent is the aura of death, and those who come into contact with the black mist around the dark phoenix will quickly age. The flower on the other side of the underworld held in Dream Yuan's hand also has unique abilities. The fragrance of flowers can evoke hallucinations, while inserting them on enemies can absorb their soul power and blood. Even if the flower on the other side of the underworld is listed separately, it still belongs to the highest level of existence in the plant martial soul, and is on the same level as his teacher's Qirong Tongtian Chrysanthemum at the Moon Pass. Upon hearing the introduction from the disciple, Yuan sighed and said, "With such talent and martial soul, you are truly the chosen one. Yuan heir, your future achievements are limitless." And a soft color flashed in the ghost's eyes. "Yuaner, you should know that there are people outside the world, and you must not be proud and neglect your cultivation because of this. Although there are few people with innate soul power, it is not without them. At least as we know, there is one person who surpasses you in both martial soul quality and talent. That person is Qianjia, right? Born at level 20. Although roast in his heart, Meng Yuan still pretended to be curious and asked, "Master, who is that person you said?" Yuan smiled and said, "You will know then. Yuan heir, let's stay at your house for the next 2 days. After we finish our task, we will take you to hunt for soul rings and return to the martial soul city." Meng Yuan was curious and asked, "Teacher, what do you two want to do? The two titled Douluo still need the help of Soul Douluo. The ghost snorted coldly and said, it's not for help, it's asking them to help seal off the sunset forest. We're dealing with a very cunning guy, and if we don't pay attention, it won't be easy for him to run away. Yuan's eyes flickered with a cold light. Yuan heir, the first lesson we teach you today is that anyone who refuses the request of the martial soul hall must die. The internal investment has passed, and the contract will be signed on Monday. Invest early. Chapter 3. Snake Hunting Plan. You are listening at novel.Audio. The first lesson that Chrysanthemum and Ghost Douluo taught Dream Yuan was that those who refused the martial soul hall would all die. The prerequisite is to be able to kill him. And Dugu was the person who refused the invitation of the two to enter the martial soul hall and had the ability to kill them. Previously, Zhu Douluo had to trouble him several times alone. Unfortunately, this old monster is extremely cunning. Every time he sees a bad situation, he decisively looks for opportunities to run, and doesn't even give Zhu Douluo the chance to perform an ultimate kill. This is the fourth time that he has been hunted. But this time, I have become proficient in learning. Not only did he shout for his friendly brothers and ghosts to come over, but he also summoned several Soul Douluo to set up a trap for Dugu. At this time, Qianjia Imperial City Dream Mansion. Sun Tzu suddenly returned, and Meng Xinji was very happy. But soon I became unhappy. After returning home, Meng Yuan was also very happy at first. After hearing his grandfather tell him the news of the marriage bestowed upon him by Emperor Qianjia, Meng Yuan couldn't be happy anymore. The two of them did each other a terrible job. Upon hearing what his grandson said after returning home, Meng Xinji expressed that he had been frightened. He never expected that Zhu Douluo would help him by hunting down a titled Douluo together. You should know that the titled Douluo is the endorsement word for peak. Looking at the hesitant dream divine machine, Meng Yuan couldn't help but speak up and comfort, don't worry, Grandpa, there won't be any accidents. This old guy hasn't been a match for Teacher Yuan several times before, let alone this time, Teacher Ghost is also here. Faced with their martial soul fusion technique, Dugu would have to shed half of his skin even if he didn't die. Moreover, this old poison is being devoured by the martial soul. With Grandpa Bai and Grandpa Ji, even if you can't defeat him, you can still drag him until the teacher arrives. And Grandpa, this is a seriously injured titled Douluo. If luck permits, you can devour him, perhaps you can also break through to this point. Once you become a titled Douluo, our current situation will greatly change. After listening to Meng Yuan's temptation, Meng Xinji also felt tempted by the proposal to kill Dugu. He has been trapped in the Soul Douluo level realm for many years. A soul master who does not want to become a titled Douluo is not a good soul master. Although Dream Machine is old, it still has a dream of being titled. My grandson's advice is indeed very good. Quickly, Meng Xinji made up his mind and the hesitation in his eyes gradually subsided. Since that's the case, Yuan heir, this favor has been decided by Grandpa. You can wait at home for Grandpa's good news. Meng Yuan hurriedly said, Grandpa, this time Dugu will definitely be doomed. You can rest assured to take action. Meng Yuan also pondered for a long time about the matter of killing Dugu. Firstly, it is one's own identity. Zhu and Gui have already been accepted as their own disciples, so in the eyes of outsiders, it is safe to belong to the side of the martial soul hall. If it had been before, having this level of identity would have been enough, but now it's different. Although the martial soul hall is still relatively honest now, in reality, it has already begun preparing to destroy the Heavenly Dou Empire. When the Dream Abyss martial soul awakened, he knew that the prince in front of him had been replaced by Qianjia. Because his martial soul will exert great pressure on the owner of the swan martial soul, which is a natural reaction from the body, regardless of the level, it will be affected. And at that time, Xueqing had no reaction at all. This indicates that the prince in front of him is no longer the same as before. Here, we have to talk about the situation of the martial soul hall again. The current martial soul hall is divided into two factions. One is the worship hall led by Qianjia Douluo, a group of people who do not listen to the command of the Pope's hall and only follow the orders of the Qianjia family, which can be said to be an arrogant group. I have been adopted as my own disciple by the two loyal henchmen of Pope Bibidong, and it seems that I am not from my own camp. According to the current relationship between Bibidong and Qianren Xueqing and water and fire, this young master definitely cannot give himself a good face. It's okay if you don't have a good impression in front of the worship department. The key is that Bibidong probably doesn't like him either. In terms of identity, my grandfather is worshipped by the Heavenly Dou royal family, which has caused me to have a royal fiancé AE, and there is a big problem with the composition. Secondly, my grandfather is clearly following the snow-clear river now. If Bibidong had a smaller heart, he might have thought that Qianren Xue would use his own tactics to counter her two lackeys. Previously, Chrysanthemum and Old Ghost were two bachelors, all they sought in their lives was glory, wealth, and status. Now that I am well, with such a disciple like myself, it is inevitable that I have become a weakness for both of them. You should know that in mainland China, the relationship between master and disciple can sometimes even surpass that between father and son. According to Sun's words, people who suspect others should use the most malicious ideas. Yuan was very afraid that he would sacrifice himself in a certain assigned task, and when the Pope's palace shook the blame again, claiming that it was a conspiracy of the temple of worship, it may be that Chrysanthemum and the Old Ghost will be more loyal to the Pope. Thinking of possible situations in the future, Yuan felt like crying. I just want to honestly endure until the end, but now it has become the first potential threat to be eliminated by all parties. Self-rescue is necessary. Based on the current situation, the first step is to pass the cooperation between oneself and the main character group. The enmity between Dream Yuan and Tang San is a deep sea of blood. The debuff of the members of the martial soul hall is stacked on them, and in addition, the teacher Yuan and the ghosts are involved in the encirclement and suppression of his father Tang Ritien and Ayin, which belongs to the way of taking death before they meet. The death of Xiaowu's mother seems to have involved her own teacher. There is no answer to the fact that the male and female protagonists have offended to death. So, the first thing I need to do is to ruin the chances of the main characters. The biggest opportunity for the protagonist group is to come from the first enemy species in mainland China, Dugu. This old man is guarding Baoshan without realizing it, but in the end, he has all benefited outsiders. Now Dugu must die. He died, and with the help of his grandfather's power, this ice and fire Liang Yi became a treasure of his own family. The immortal herbs inside are basically a nail on the board to help our old man break through the title Douluo. Only when my grandfather breaks through can Dream Yuan feel a little more at ease. Secondly, after cutting off the ice and fire in advance, most of the main characters will be eliminated, and the threat I will face in the future will be much smaller. Killing Dugu is the first step towards turning his villain around. Although this old man has no grudges or grievances against himself, and has a beautiful granddaughter, but this world where power is paramount is like this. The reasons for killing are all very simple. Because your presence affects the interests of others. If you don't want to have this ending one day, then the only thing you can choose is to become stronger quickly. Thinking of his royal fiancé Yuan felt a great headache. In order to avoid getting involved with the Qianjia royal family, I never leave home. As a result, I didn't go to trouble myself. Instead, trouble flew by and my old man agreed to the marriage of the Snow Knight Emperor like this. Don't consider the attitude of the martial soul hall. In fact, this cannot be blamed for the lack of careful consideration by Dream Machine. Before the true face of the martial soul hall was exposed, its reputation was quite good and it was a target that all forces wanted to win over. Chapter 4. Calculation by all parties. You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. As night approached, Dream Yuan and his old man went to the Heavenly Dou imperial city together. The Qianjia royal family held a banquet tonight. On the surface, it was a celebration for Princess Xueqing's awakening of her martial soul, but in reality, the Snow Knight Emperor wanted to take this opportunity to announce his marriage with the royal family. Unfortunately, Dream Machine cannot refuse this marriage alliance. After all, he is a worshipper of the Qianjia royal family and clearly stands on the side of the Xueqing River. Besides being the only woman in the royal family, Xueqing is also Xueqing's younger sister. With both emotions and reason, Dream Qianjia has no reason to refuse this marriage alliance. Before the Martial Soul Hall clearly expressed its ambitions, the Heavenly Dou royal family was still willing to get close to the Martial Soul Hall. Meng Yuan specifically went to find Zhu Douluo about this matter, but Zhu Douluo tacitly agreed to this situation. The elders have no objections, and the younger generation Meng Yuan has no right to oppose this arranged marriage. To be honest, I would rather go to the Seven Treasures Glass sect than join the Martial Soul Hall or Dream Abyss. Now the resource allocation of the Martial Soul Palace can be said to be insufficient to even allocate one's own golden generation. For those with problems with the Dream Yuan component in the Martial Soul City, they can only rely on their own two teachers. In the Seven Treasures Glass sect, according to the situation where there is a lack of resources, one can directly fill up their cultivation resources. Moreover, compared to the protagonist Tang San's relentless blood feud with the Martial Soul Hall, it is evident that in the words of the Seven Treasures and Glass sect, there is more room for maneuvering through various conflicts. Maybe we can still make it to the end to eat chicken. Of course, the most crucial thing is to be able to eat soft rice in the Liuli sect. Unfortunately, due to the sudden appearance of the two titled Douluo, Zhu and Gui, Meng Yuan's beautiful wish of becoming Ning Fengji's son.in.law cannot be realized. On the way from Meng Yuan to the palace, detectives from various factions also transmitted the situation of the awakening of the martial soul back. Different forces have different views on this. The most intense reaction among them should be attributed to the head of the Seven Treasures Glass sect, Ning Fengji. After hearing the report from the intelligence officer of Qianjia Imperial City, Ning Fengji's expression did not ease. So much so that even the sword-fighting Luo on the side couldn't bear to watch. Sword Do Luo Chen frowned and said, "Fengji, if you miss it, you will miss it." This time, the Martial Soul Hall intercepts the beard in advance, and we have no way to do it. Ning Fengji rubbed his temples and said, "Uncle Jian, I personally rejected a future guardian Douluo. He has innate soul power and will become a title Douluo 100% in the future. Previously, the Snow Knight Emperor invited me to watch the ceremony. I sigh. If I had known that such a genius would appear at the awakening ceremony of the royal princess, he would have said that everything would pass. Unfortunately, there is no if in the world, let alone regret medicine. Now Ning Feng's intestines are all blue with regret. He once had an opportunity, but unfortunately missed it completely due to his contempt for the royal family. According to Dream Yuan's talent, becoming a title Douluo is a definite thing on the board. Moreover, Meng Yuan is now the personal disciple of the two titled Douluo, Zhu and Gui, and will definitely become a core member of the Martial Soul Hall in the future. They are all foxes that have been around for thousands of years, and Ning Fengji immediately saw the plan behind the marriage alliance of the Snow Knight Emperor. He just wants to take this opportunity to directly bind Dream Yuan and the royal family together. Because I am the teacher of Xueqing and represent the upper three schools. After the accession of Xueqing to the throne in the future, the power of the royal family will be greatly influenced by the Seven Treasures of the Glass sect, and even Xueqing may become a puppet to be manipulated. If the core members of the Martial Soul Hall are recruited as their son.in.law and another major force is brought in to balance the relationship, it can prevent the Seven Treasures and Glass sect from taking power alone, and the position and power of the royal family will become more stable. If these relationships can be properly utilized, there may even be a chance to annihilate the Star Luo Empire. Gu Rong looked at Ning Fengji's expression and snorted coldly. Fengji, although innate full soul power is rare, it is not rare to encounter it in 1,000 years. It is normal to have more than 10 in 100 years. The Douluo continent is so big, and in the future, I'm afraid I won't be able to recruit talented disciples. Even if that little guy is taken away by the martial soul hall, what would happen? His grandfather is a worshipper of the royal family. Do you really think the martial soul hall would rest assured to cultivate him as the core? I think this little guy is probably a partner between the martial soul hall and the empire. We won't miss the opportunity to win him over. Ning Fengji let out a light sigh and said, Uncle Sword and Uncle Bone, that's not what I'm worried about. I, Ning Fengji, have 7 sons and 6 daughters. Apart from Rongrong, who has not yet awakened his martial soul, I don't know how talented he is. There's no one left who can take on the foundation of the 7 treasures and glass sect. We will eventually grow old, but what should our sect do in the future? Upon hearing this, both Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo were silent. The current situation of the sect is characterized by a lack of acceptance from the younger generation. At this moment, a little girl burst in from outside. Dad, Grandpa Sword, Grandpa Bone, you all stayed in the main hall all afternoon. Didn't you agree to take Rongrong to the banquet tonight? After a bitter smile, Ning Fengji changed her expression and held Ning Rongrong's hand, saying, Let's go, Rongrong. Let's go to the banquet hosted by the royal family now. Maybe Rongrong can still make friends. Ning Fengji's last sentence is very meaningful. At this time, in the papal palace of the martial soul city, Bibidong sat alone on the throne without saying a word. And below is a masked man half kneeling. Bibidong lightly tapped his finger on the seat and said, Do Elder Ju and Elder Gui have any objections to the alliance of the Tiandou royal family? Yes, Meng Yuan has already reported this matter to Elder Ju. Elder Ju's attitude is very ambiguous, just said, follow the elder's instructions. Upon hearing this, Bibidong sneered and said, Elder Ju's abacus is quite impressive. Forget it, you can go down first. Yes. According to the pursuit of elegance, wealth, and status, in Juhua Pass, Bibidong immediately saw the calculation behind Yu Pass. Now Moon Pass only knows that His Highness Martial Soul's next plan is to expand his power in the Heavenly Dou Empire, rather than directly annex it. Yu Guan took Meng Yuan as his disciple, but he played a good chess game. Meng Yuan was originally the grandson worshipped by the Heavenly Dou Empire, and now he is married to the royal family. If he wants to take any action against the empire in the future, he will inevitably need the help of the Moon Pass and the ghosts. Don't look at these two pretending in front of people, but there are 8 elders in the Martial Soul Hall and the Pope's Hall. The pressure of internal competition between Ju and Gui is still significant. However, marrying the Heavenly Dou royal family is ultimately an unstable factor. Bibidong's eyes flashed with a hint of coldness. Her plan does not allow for any surprises. And Dream Abyss was the biggest variable in the process of annexing the Heavenly Dou Empire. But if we eliminate this threat now, I'm afraid it won't hurt the hearts of Ju and Gui who have been banned. Anyway, let's keep this kid for a while longer. Internal investment has passed, seeking an investment, signing on Monday. Chapter 5. Qianjia's Plan. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the eyes of outsiders, Meng Yuan, the grandson of the royal family who worships the Dream Divine Machine, is a very introverted person. Unlike typical aristocratic playboys, this child has been eager to learn since childhood. At the age of just 6, he has already read most of the books in Dream Machine's collection and even written some papers. Of course, the most famous deeds are the 2 debates he and Yu Shaojiang had in the famous magazine, Martial Soul. This is a genius. After awakening his martial soul today, the top-quality martial soul, combined with innate soul power, further enabled him to fulfill this title. The dream divine machine was summoned by the Snow Knight Emperor upon arriving at the palace, and now only Dream Yuan was left to wander in this hall. "Are you my fiancé? The sudden sound interrupted Meng Yuan's contemplation. Standing in front of me was a doll like little Loli. Xiaolulai has short light golden hair. She wore a platinum crown on her head and a white feather skirt with lace cuffs on her body. The delicate texture and embellished gemstones all hinted at the uniqueness of her clothes. Her feet were wearing a pair of crystal shoes, and her round little feet were faintly visible. The sudden appearance of this little guy is the protagonist of today's banquet, and also the fiancée of Dream Yuan, His Royal Highness Xueqing, the little princess of the Qianjia royal family." Faced with Dream Abyss, little Loli showed no trace of timidity. Do children from Douluo continent mature so early? In his heart, he roast, but Meng Yuan still bowed slightly. "Your Highness, we met in the Wulin Hall this afternoon." Xueqing blinked and said, "Yes, but you didn't talk to me. I haven't seen you at a banquet before." This left Meng Yuan unsure how to answer the conversation for a moment. And Xueqing continued to ask, "Are you about to leave Qianjia Imperial City?" Meng Yuan nodded and said, "Yes, in a few days, my teacher will take me back to the martial Soul City." Xiaolulai's golden eyes dimmed slightly, and then she said in an envious tone, "The teachings of the title Douluo should indeed be cherished. If you have time to come back, remember to write me a letter. Your talent is strong, but I am not weak either. I will try my best to catch up with your footsteps." At the end, Xueqing's tone clearly fluctuated. Although Xueqing is just 6 years old, her mind is clearly far ahead of her peers. The children of ordinary families may have limited understanding of their fiancé to those who will live together in the future, but this little princess doesn't know where her imagination has gone. I will inform you in advance when I come back. Meng Yuan has carefully considered his marriage. Although marrying the Qianjia royal family may bring some trouble to oneself, it doesn't matter. At least it is also a family that has been passed down for thousands of years, and the heritage of the Xue family is quite profound. And Xueqing is different from other royal families. It was Xueqing, or more specifically, Qianren watching as she grew up. People are not plants and trees, who can be ruthless. Even a cat that has been raised for more than a decade will have feelings, let alone a sister who spends time together. With the relationship of his fiancée Xueqing, there is a high probability that Qianrengshu will win over him in the future. Her goal is to secretly rub and kill the Snow Knight Emperor in the way that Li Daitao is stiff, and then ascend to the throne herself. Upon careful consideration, Qianrengshu wasted so much energy, even sacrificing most of his cultivation time, spending more than 20 years playing the role of a wise prince until he usurped the throne, just to gain Bibidong's recognition. Isn't this just pulling a calf? Moreover, this matter also received the tacit approval of Qiandao Lu. Qianrengshu is not sensible. Did the semi-divine level Qiandaoliu's brain also get kicked by the donkey? There must be a big cat trick behind the story of Qiandao Lu causing Qianrengshu to steal the country, even related to becoming a god. Having traveled through so many years and read so many books of Dream Machine, Dream Yuan also discovered that there are many big bugs in Douluo one that cannot be logically consistent. If it were written by the old man who believed in the God King, he might not even know how he died. Although Meng Yuan thinks a lot, the time is very short. Little brother Meng, you are here. At this moment, a soft voice came. Looking back, I saw a gentle blonde boy walking from behind. He looks 12 or 13 years old, with a smile on his face and a refreshing aura emanating from his body, mixed with a divine aura. He is the crown prince of Qianjia, Xueqing. Following behind the Xueqing river was a mischievous-looking little Loli. She has chestnut hair and seems to have not yet reached the age of awakening her martial soul. Her bright and cunning eyes are full of spiritual energy, and she is quietly gazing at Meng Yuan. Upon seeing the visitor, Meng Yuan quickly bowed and said, "Your Highness, Crown Prince." Xueqing smiled and said, Brother Meng, I can call you that. Of course, it's my honor, Your Highness the Crown Prince. Meng Yuan couldn't figure out what medicine the fake Crown Prince was selling in his gourd, but since he had already made up his mind to stand on the side of Qianren, it definitely wouldn't leave a bad impression on him. Xueqing smiled and touched Meng Yuan's head, saying, I met you a few times when I visited Mr. Meng, but I didn't expect you to become Ake's husband in the blink of an eye. We really had a chance. Xueqing, on the other hand, shyly tugged at Xueqing's sleeve. Xueqing smiled and then said, By the way, little brother Meng, let me introduce you. This is my teacher's daughter, Princess Ning Rongrong of the 7 Treasures of the Glass Sect. Ning Rongrong lifted her skirt with a slight bow. Although she was young, there was no flaw in her etiquette, and she was a perfect little lady. Xiao Meng, can I call you that? Meng Yuan nodded and said, Of course, Miss Rongrong. Some members of the protagonist group are destined to be enemies, but others are objects of attraction. Ning Rongrong and the 7 Treasures Glass Sect behind him are within the United Front range of Dream Abyss. He also doesn't want to leave any bad impression on this clever little witch. Ning Rongrong blinked and then said in an envious tone, Xiao Meng, I heard from my senior brother that you have innate soul power, and your martial soul is still a top-level martial soul that has never appeared before. Can I take a look? Meng Yuan looked at Xueqing River and then said awkwardly, Well, my martial soul is a bit special. Xueqing waved his sleeve and said, It's okay, let's go to the Imperial Garden. Coincidentally, I also want to see your special martial soul, dream little brother. Meng Yuan nodded and said, Since Your Highness the Crown Prince has said so, I will take orders to act. At this moment, Dream Divine Machine arrived with 2 elderly men, one fat and one thin. The nobles attending the banquet wanted to come forward and compliment, but were all ignored by Dream Divine Machine. The Dream God Machine walked straight towards the Dream Abyss. Grandpa. Mr. Dream. Meng Xinji bowed to Xueqing River and then said with a distressed expression, Your Highness, I have some personal matters to attend to tonight. Yuan is still young, may I ask Your Highness to take care of me for the night? Xueqing's eyes flashed with a gleam of light, and then he smiled and said, Sir, just go ahead and leave Yuan to me. Meng Xinji nodded and then glanced at Meng Yuan before leaving. Meng Yuan knew that even the old man had gone outside to snipe Dugu. Chapter 6. Black Moon and High Wind Murder Night. You are listening at novel.Audio. It's very dark tonight, and the moon is also covered by dark clouds. This is a fierce night, suitable for killing. Dugu visits his granddaughter in the Imperial City once a month, and now his granddaughter is studying at the Tiando Royal Academy, which is also his only weakness. Thinking of his granddaughter, Dugu's eyes flashed with a soft color. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. Yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 9 soul rings rise from behind. The colorful light dispersed the darkness around him, and at some point, his body was already covered with fine emerald green scales. The foul and pungent green mist diffused on itself. Wherever this mist passes, flowers and plants instantly wither and wither, trees also become twisted, and even the land is corroded into black by this poisonous mist. At this moment, the air was filled with not only the foul smell, but also a faint floral fragrance. Dugu held his hands back and said with his head raised, Chrysanthemum pass, I know it's you. Come out now. Haha. A momentum far beyond Dugu suddenly erupted from the depths of the dense forest. The ground shrouded in poisonous mist was instantly covered with golden chrysanthemums. These flowers sway with the wind, while the green mist is absorbed and purified by the blooming chrysanthemums at a speed visible to the naked eye. The sky suddenly began to rain with golden petals. And a white figure slowly walked out of the forest. 9 soul rings, yellow, yellow, purple, purple, black, 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 and black, rose from the soles of their feet. Yuan was playing with a strange chrysanthemum, and with a smile on her face, she said to Dugu, "Since you know it's me, why don't you run for your life? Old poison, you have shown your skills." Dugu snorted coldly and then said, "Chrysanthemum pass, I've fought against you not once or twice. Although I'm not your opponent, I really have to fight my life. The winner is still unknown." After speaking, Dugu stomped his feet, and the poisonous mist released from his body became even more intense, transforming from emerald green to dark green. And the chrysanthemums on the ground couldn't withstand the strong corrosion, turning yellow and withering one after another. Yuan held her nose in disdain and said, "Old poison, we all know how difficult it is to take this step to the present day. I'll give you one last chance. Martial Soul Hall, will you join or not?" Dugu, on the other hand, coldly refused. "I'm used to being alone and don't like being instructed by others, let alone having the same interest in being a dog as you." Yuan couldn't help but feel ashamed and angry when he was insulted and said, You're looking for death." Dugu shook his long sleeve and said, "Talking too much is useless. Our subordinates will see the true chapter. The fourth soul skill is the blue scale maze formation." A phantom blue snake shadow appeared behind Dugu. Subsequently, the toxic mist that was spreading around suddenly flowed in a certain pattern and gradually changed from an emerald green to a colorful one. There was also a hint of solemnity in Yuan's eyes. Dugu's fourth soul skill, the blue scale poison formation, not only has extremely strong toxicity but also has a hallucinogenic effect. Furthermore, due to the conflicting attributes, this move has a significant weakening effect on him. Dugu sneered at the corner of his mouth and said, "Chrysanthemum pass, I don't have time to spend time with you here." The seventh soul skill, the blue scale true body. The emerald green poisonous gas rose and quickly completely covered this area. Then a pair of crimson eyes lit up, accompanied by a roar, and a jet black breath suddenly sprayed towards the moon. Yuan extended a hand expressionlessly and said, "The sixth soul skill, the golden core flowing with rosy clouds." The immortal martial soul, Qi Rong Tong Tian Chrysanthemum, was large in his hand, and then shone brilliantly from the stamen. The next second, the orange beam of light roared towards the exhaled breath, and the two beams collided, causing a violent explosion. At the moment of explosion, the orange-red beam transformed into countless streams of light and scattered in all directions. The flowing light ignited the toxic mist, instantly forming a colorful sea of fire. A piercing sound sounded, and the ignited toxic mist suddenly dispersed. The huge snake body fiercely collided with the moon. Yuan jumped up and dodged, saying, "Old poison, you are now a living target. If you only have these two moves, it's better to capture them as soon as possible, so that I can save some energy." As he spoke, his sixth soul ring flickered again, following the scorching beam of light as it ascended into the sky, before turning into countless golden flames and falling. Dugu's massive body couldn't escape, and the golden fire landed on him, making a sizzling sound. However, Dugu didn't want to dodge either. He knew that it was difficult to suppress the strong attack style of the Moon Pass with long-range attacks. His real goal was to use this opportunity to use physical attacks against the Moon Pass. The green light flickered on Dugu's body, and a faint dragon cry seemed to be heard. The massive dragon shadow followed the snake's body towards the Moon Pass, which was Dugu's biggest physical killing move, the sixth soul skill, the blue-scaled snake emperor breaking. Yuan's pupils suddenly shrank, obviously not expecting Dugu to still hide a few unique moves that he had not used before. Faced with Dugu's killing move in his true martial soul state, Yuan dared not continue to rely on it. The seventh black soul ring lit up, and the Moon Pass decisively opened the martial soul true body. The seventh soul skill, martial soul true body. Dugu's move not only causes huge physical damage, but also detonates his fourth soul skill, the blue scale mist formation. Accompanied by a huge dragon shadow, the colorful poisonous mist burning around also exploded with a loud bang, forming a spectacular mushroom cloud. Even the nearby Qianjia imperial city can see this illuminated sky. The smoke had not yet dissipated when the sound of the moon pass was heard in a state of desperation. Chrysanthemums remain, the ground is covered in wounds, flowers fall and people break their intestines. In an instant, a golden tornado storm swept over Dugu, and upon closer inspection, the golden aura was composed of countless fluttering petals. Each flower was like a sharp bayonet, hitting Dugu's scales and making a sound of gold and stone colliding, creating a dazzling spark. Click and wipe, with a sound of broken glass. Dugu's hard scales were instantly torn apart by the petals, and countless small incisions appeared on his massive snake body. Green blood flowed out of the wound and evaporated, while Dugu himself let out a mournful roar. With a loud roar, the massive snake body fell and smashed a large pit on the ground. And Yuan, whose face was pale, carried the Qianjia chrysanthemum and landed on a tree. The ninth soul skill, as the most powerful killing move of the title Douluo, especially the extreme attack style of the Moon Pass, consumes a lot of energy for himself every time it is used. Yuan took a slight breath and then smiled grimly, saying, "Old poison, you are doomed this time." He forcefully took on his ninth soul skill, and now Dugu is on the brink of death. Yuan still has considerable confidence in his ninth soul skill. The eighth soul skill, time condenses. The giant snake lying on the ground suddenly stood up, and at the same time, a strange wave fixed the moon gate. What? The internal investment has passed, and we will sign the contract tomorrow. Those who are interested in investing should hurry up. Chapter 7. The Interest of Xueqing River. You are listening at novel.Audio. While hunting Dugu outside the city, Dream Yuan displayed his martial soul in the imperial garden. A loud and clear phoenix roar echoed through the sky and earth. Subsequently, the crimson flowers on the other side instantly replaced the countless flowers in the imperial garden. The black and red shadow of the dark phoenix hovered behind the dream abyss, while a black mist began to diffuse from him. Due to not yet obtaining the first soul ring, Dream Abyss is unable to enchant the martial soul. Ning Rongrong stared with big eyes and said enviously, "What a magnificent martial soul. Little dream, this is the most magnificent martial soul I have ever seen in my life." Compared to Ning Rongrong, Xueqing was trembling all over. The phoenix is originally the king of all birds, and naturally has an extremely powerful suppressive effect on all subordinate bird martial souls. Meng Yuan's prison blood dark phoenix is more aggressive than other phoenixes, and it is normal for Xueqing to feel afraid because it is an absolute suppression from her bloodline. And Xueqing River seems to have nothing to do. It seems to have not been affected at all. It was only after noticing Xueqing's discomfort that Meng Yuan put away his martial soul and then bowed slightly, saying, "I'm sorry, Your Highness the Crown Prince, for destroying the imperial garden of the palace." At this time, in the palace, flowers withered, trees withered, and the originally flowing spring water turned into black stagnant water. The imperial garden looks like a dead place that has been abandoned for many years. Xueqing raised his eyebrows and then smiled, saying, "It's okay. Tomorrow, the craftsman can restore this garden to its original state. Also, in the future, just call me Dugu. His Highness the Crown Prince is too far-sighted." Meng Yuan's eyes lit up, and the change in her title meant that Qianrengshu had some kind of recognition for her, which was a good performance. He's really a magical martial soul. A gentle voice came from a refined man dressed in a white dress. Behind him was a tall but haggard old man with only a few sparse strands of hair on his head, looking very strange. "Dad, Grandpa Bone." Ning Rongrong immediately threw himself into Ning Fengji's arms. Xueqing bowed slightly with a respectful expression and said, "Teacher." And Meng Yuan was energized, obviously not expecting to run into this old fox in the garden. It's a coincidence, but is there really such a coincidence? Ning Fengji smiled and said, "Is this dream little friend?" As rumored, he is indeed a peerless genius. Faced with Ning Fengji's praise, Meng Yuan pretended to be flattered and said, I can't afford to be praised like this by Lord Ning. And Gu Rong, standing behind Ning Fengji, squinted her eyes slightly. After a moment of silence, Ning Fengji smiled and said, I have also heard of the 2 debates I had with Yu Xiaojiang in martial soul before. My talent, whether in cultivation or research on martial souls, is very great. Speaking of this, Ning Fengji's eyes flashed with a hint of regret. Missing such a genius is one of the most regretful things in his life, not one of them. Shaking his head, Ning Fengji held Ning Rongrong's hand and said, Rongrong, it's getting late. We should go back now. Ning Rongrong nodded obediently and said, okay, let's go home. Later, Ning Rongrong smiled and said, Senior brother, little dream brother, goodbye when there's a chance. After the people of the 7 Treasures Glass sect left, Xueqing put his hands behind his back and said, Dream, let's go too. Dream Divine Machine went to besiege Dugu. In order to prevent any accidents, Dream Divine Machine entrusted Dream Yuan to Xueqing. Even if something unexpected happens to him, he can still protect Meng Yuan from any accidents by leveraging the Xueqing River. Although the royal family is very weak, relying on the heritage left by their ancestors, there are still means to resist the tidal Douluo. For Snow.White unicorns were pulling the carriage towards the Crown Prince's East Palace. Xueqing scrutinized the dream abyss carefully. She was more curious about the little boy at present, because Meng Yuan didn't seem like a child anymore. A person with extraordinary talent and innate intelligence is qualified to become a deity. Perhaps the little one in front of me is the only person in the future who can catch up with my own footsteps. For someone like her, who is born at level 20 and destined to become a god in this life, no one is worth her attention. To become a fake crown prince through wasteful cultivation is not only to prove one's abilities to Bibidong, but also because it is too boring. The sudden appearance of Meng Yuan, a figure beyond our understanding, would naturally catch her attention. For a monster, only another monster will understand their own thoughts. Xueqing has made up his mind to let Meng Yuan grow. Looking at Xueqing River, who had been staring at him in a daze, Meng Yuan felt a little uneasy in his heart. He couldn't help but shout, Brother Xue, is there something on my face? After Xueqing regained his senses, he couldn't help but shake his head and said, It's nothing, it's just that he thought of something. Then she curiously asked, Brother Meng, your martial soul is really too special. Do you have any plans for a certain path? Soul masters are mainly divided into 6 categories based on their different attributes of martial souls, namely control, strong attack, sensitive attack, defense, assistance, and treatment. However, due to their unique characteristics, the martial souls of Dream Abyss seem to be able to handle everything except defense and treatment. After some thought, Meng Yuan said, It depends on how my 2 teachers arrange it. Chrysanthemum Douluo and Ghost Douluo, each with a strong attack and a quick attack, will definitely cultivate this only disciple into a strong main C. Xueqing pondered for a moment before speaking, Meng, I personally recommend that you follow the path of a fierce attack type soul master. Phoenix type martial souls and dragon types are both dominant beings in animal martial souls. A powerful beast soul master is usually a fierce attack type. Subsequently, Xueqing chuckled and said, the so-called control system is the strongest, but it is just a saying that mediocre masters harm others. The top-level martial soul needs to elevate a certain item to the extreme, and using control will inevitably reduce the potential of the martial soul. Meng Yuan nodded thoughtfully, realizing that Xueqing, or Qianren Xue, had a lot of valuable guidance for him. Upon careful consideration, Tang San's blue-silver emperor almost had the master develop it into scrap. Taking a step back, even if Tang San's blue-silver grass is really an ordinary blue-silver grass, what are the characteristics of blue-silver grass? Strong vitality. As a result, the master insisted on using the soul ring to give blue-silver grass a bunch of other chaotic attributes, such as blood-sucking, toxins, and resilience. If it weren't for Tang San's halo that blinded people, he would have encountered enough opportunities, and perhaps the first martial soul would have been directly defeated. Suddenly, a loud bang came. Xueqing lifted the curtain on the car and squinted his eyes slightly. I saw the sky in the distance already dyed orange-red, almost turning the night into day. Yuan thought to himself, has it already started on the teacher's end? I don't know if I can take down the old poison. Chapter 8. The Death of a Titled Falling Snake. You are listening at novel.Audio. Chrysanthemum Pass, you're being careless. A hoarse voice came from all directions. At a critical moment, several huge black ghostly hands suddenly reached out from the ground and pinched Dugu. The cold soul power continuously impacted Dugu's body, forcing him to break away from his true martial soul state. Then the ghostly figure flashed, but it directly tore off one of his arms. Dugu, who had transformed back into a human body, suddenly spewed out a mouthful of blood, and then quickly sealed the wound with soul power to prevent excessive bleeding. He roared with a gloomy expression, I don't see the soul ring, only ghosts appear. Old ghost, you've come too. As soon as the words fell, a wind condensed beside the moon gate. When the black wind dissipated, a ghostly figure appeared beside the moon pass. He hugged his shoulders and looked down at Dugu, saying, Old poison, he's already a title Douluo. Are you willing to die like this? Give you one last chance. Descend, or die. Dugu gasped heavily, looking at the ghosts and moon pass that were high and high, knowing that he was truly unlucky this time. He is not yet a match for the moon pass, let alone a much stronger ghost than the moon pass. However, even if he dies today, he still has to take a back seat. Thinking of this, Dugu's face turned fierce. He spat out a dark green inner pill. Yuan's face changed and he said, Oh no, old poison wants to go all out. The ghost sneered and pressed one hand onto Yuan's shoulder, saying, First soul skill, Shadow World. The first soul skill of ghosts can lurk into shadows. Immune to all attacks from the real world, of course, he cannot launch attacks on others in the shadows. This soul skill is the most difficult part for ghosts to deal with, and with its speed, it is difficult for anyone to withstand the continuous attacks of ghosts. Seeing the disappearing moon pass and ghosts, Dugu gritted his teeth and once again activated his fourth soul skill, Blue Scale Poison Mist. This colorful mist also serves to shield the perception of soul power. He was able to escape from the hands of the moon pass multiple times, except that the moon pass did not have a desperate mentality, relying on this move. No one was willing to die, and seeing that Yuan and Ghost had no intention of working hard with him, Dugu, who was in despair, once again ignited a glimmer of hope. Perhaps I can seek help from the Qianjia royal family. He has some friendship with Prince Xueqing, the younger brother of the Snow Knight Emperor. Perhaps we can escape this calamity with the face of the Heavenly Dou royal family. Even if it were to become a royal offering afterwards, it would be better than entering the Martial Soul Hall. Due to the repeated robberies and killings at the Moon Pass, Dugu's hatred towards the Martial Soul Hall has already exploded. He would rather die than join the Martial Soul Hall to survive. Dugu knew that the Snow Star Prince was not in the Imperial City at this time, but was hunting soul rings in the Sunset Forest. As long as you can find Snow Star, you have a chance to survive. Dugu has determined that the current Martial Soul Hall is unwilling to turn against the Heavenly Dou Empire. The value of a title Douluo is worth it, and the Heavenly Dou Imperial family will spare no effort to protect themselves. The third soul skill, Breath Barrier. A touch of orange-red light flashed by. Instantly sweep away the toxic mist. At this moment, Dugu had completely disappeared. If the title Douluo is determined to escape, there is really no way for Yuan and ghosts to do so. Chrysanthemum Pass, what should we do now? Yuan narrowed his eyes slightly and said, the old poison is seriously injured and cannot run far. Now he either goes to the imperial city or can only escape into the depths of the sunset forest. The ghost frowned and said, Saras is guarding the imperial city. Fighting with the old poison won't be a problem for a while. Once Coco enters the sunset forest and is determined to hide, the two of us won't be able to catch him. Yuan chuckled lightly and said, Don't panic, old ghost. There is also a dream machine waiting for him in the sunset forest. We'll just wait here, wherever there's a wave of soul power coming from, we'll chase wherever we go. At this moment, in the dark forest. The second soul skill, Blue Scale Toxin. The bi-scale fierce poison releases deadly toxins when attacking. In addition, this move can also be used as an auxiliary soul skill, which can numb one's nerves and put oneself into an excited state. The current Dugu bow temporarily blocked his body's perception of pain through this move, and he forced himself to swallow the blood that was about to be sprayed out. Having taken a 9th soul skill from the Moon Pass and was ambushed by ghosts, he now relies solely on his will to survive. At this moment, Dugu Bo, who was seriously injured, did not even notice that the sky-blue vines had quietly wrapped around the ground around him. The 8th soul skill, Life Extraction. The black soul ring flickered with a dazzling light, and the green vine, like countless tentacles, rushed towards Dugu Bo from all directions. A fierce light flashed in Dugu Bo's eyes. The first soul skill, the Azure Scale Poison Fire. The emerald green flames were like countless fireflies, then suddenly shot towards these vines. The vine hit by the poisonous fire instantly withered and then transformed into pure soul power. Although it was only the first soul skill, Dugu Bo's move was not much worse than Jilin's 8th soul skill. Unfortunately, he was ultimately injured too severely. Several vines still passed through the poisonous fire and wrapped around Dugu Bo's body. And the day after tomorrow, Xueqing suddenly gave birth to thorns and fiercely inserted them into Dugu Bo's body, continuously extracting his blood and soul power. Unfortunately, Dugu Bo suffered severe backlash from his martial soul, and now he is just a poisonous person. On this day, the poison extracted from the green vine instantly turned into fly ash. Green blood dripped from the wound, and the land splattered by the blood had become scorched black. I am truly a title Douluo. Even if I am injured like this, I can easily crack my 8th soul skill. I really can't imagine what it would be like to face the title Douluo in its heyday. A figure jumped down from the tree. This is a skinny old man, who is a friend of Dream Divine Machine and also a worshipper of the Heavenly Dou royal family, Jilin. He is a soul Douluo. Dugu Bo covered his chest, his green pupils flickering with an angry cold light, and said, When will even a mere soul Douluo dare to attack and kill a title Douluo? Jilin chuckled lightly and said, If I were the only one, I wouldn't dare to stop poison Douluo crown here. The 8th soul skill, Heavenly Star fallen to the west. The sky was suddenly illuminated by a fireball into daylight. A magnificent stove burning with blazing flames, like a meteorite falling from the sky. Dugu Bo's face turned green, but he still forcefully squeezed his final soul power and released his defensive soul skill. Python Sky Gang Shield. Boom, the furnace falls to the ground, and a mushroom cloud rises. Dugu Bo was shaking and almost unable to stand steadily, and blood was oozing from the corners of his mouth. If we add the two of us, we should be able to intercept poison Douluo crown for a while, right? The figures of Dream Divine Machine and Baibao also appeared from the darkness. Dugu Bo's pupils suddenly shrank and he said, It seems that Chrysanthemum Pass is really well prepared this time. I will definitely eat it. The world has become pitch black. The sky also turned blood red. The 7th soul ring on the body of the dream god flickered with a dazzling light, and the next second the old man transformed into a black monster with 2 blood-red eyes. The 6th soul skills Boundless Dream, the 8th soul skills Dream Devours. The black-purple light instantly enveloped Dugu Bo. Dugu Bo only felt a darkness before his eyes, and a drowsy feeling struck. In his heyday, he naturally did not fear the soul skills of the Dream Divine Machine. Unfortunately, now he has been severely injured by the titles of Ju and Gui Douluo and is on the brink of death. The soul skills of the Dream Divine Machine have a miraculous effect on him. The black demon devoured Dugu Bo in one gulp, followed by a mournful scream. Ah, no, geese. Dugu Bo stared at his big eyes, bloodshot and white. He collapsed straight down, unable to close his eyes. The world has changed back once again. Baibao looked at Dugu Bo, who had fallen to the ground, and said in surprise, "Big brother, has he already dead?" As soon as he finished speaking, his back completely consumed Dugu Bo's physical strength. Meng Xinji's eyelids trembled slightly, and then he turned around calmly, bowing and praising, "I just gave him the final blow. If it weren't for the previous efforts of Jumiangxia and Gimiangxia, even if the three of us worked together, we wouldn't be opponents of Dugu Bo." At some point, the figures of Yuan and the ghosts appeared behind them. "Sign the contract today, get on the bus at the last minute." Chapter 9. Ruyi Baibao Bag. You are listening at novel.Audio. One night in the Eastern Palace was the first time that Meng Yuan had left home and spent the night outside after crossing to Douluo continent. In addition, worried about the safety of his grandfather's dream machine, Meng Yuan basically stayed up all night. The next morning, Meng Yuan looked very lethargic. "Good morning, little brother Meng." Looking at Meng Yuan, who was listless and wearing a black eye circle, Xueqing couldn't help but laugh. Through the brief interaction on the carriage yesterday, Meng Yuan still gained some favor from this fake crown prince. The first step in bringing people closer together is to resonate with each other. However, there are some similarities between Dream Abyss and Qianren Shui. For example, both of them belong to the type of heavenly pride, and their father passed away early and their mother had an extremely poor relationship, raised by their grandfather. The current Qianrengshu is just a teenager, not the cold and ruthless appearance he will have decades later. Unconsciously, she had a slight interest in gaining a deeper understanding of Dream Yuan. Faced with Xueqing River, Meng Yuan gathered himself and asked, "Does Brother Shui wake up so early every day?" This sound interrupted her thinking. Xueqing nodded helplessly and said, "The plan for a day is in the morning. There are endless affairs to handle every day. It was only in the morning that I could barely squeeze out some time to practice." Later, Xueqing touched Dream Yuan's head and said, "Even if you don't have a soul ring now, the soul power you cultivate will accumulate in your body." Accumulating thick and thin means that. Then Xueqing asked curiously, "When do your two teachers plan to help you hunt the first soul ring? Have you figured out what soul beast to use for the first soul ring?" Meng Yuan said with uncertainty, "I don't know. Teacher Yuan said he would take me to obtain the soul ring after completing the task." The martial soul of Dream Yuan is too special. The Phoenix soul of the Death series is the only one in the entire Douluo continent. The requirements of Phoenix martial soul for additional soul rings are already very strict, let alone the martial soul of Dream Abyss is not just a simple beast martial soul, but also accompanied by the other shore flower. After pondering for a while, Xueqing said, "Junior brother's martial soul is a rare death attribute. If you want to take the route of strong attack, you can refer to the soul ring configuration of Bibidong in the martial soul hall." Meng Yuan keenly noticed that there was a slight change in Xueqing's eyes as he mentioned the name. Later, Xueqing continued, "Many soul masters on the mainland like to look for soul beasts that are similar to their own martial souls when hunting for martial souls. For example, soul masters of bird martial souls like to look for birds." "Oh, forget, Dream little brother is a genius, you all know that." Meng Yuan suddenly asked curiously, "Brother Shui, I have a question. For example, a person's martial soul is a plate armor giant rhinoceros, and then all of their soul rings are hunted from the plate armor giant rhinoceros. Will there be any special changes when opening the martial soul true body?" This is a well-known hypothesis in the academic community, called the soul-soul promotion theory. The general idea is to say that a person's martial soul and the soul ring they hunt are always consistent. Will it make their martial soul stronger when opening their martial soul true body, or promote the evolution of their martial soul? Just to verify this hypothesis, the cost paid during the experiment was too high. So far, no soul master dares to test this theory with his own body. After all, soul masters who can cultivate to the level of soul saint do not need to take this risk, and soul masters who want to take this opportunity do not have the ability to be promoted to soul lord. Xueqing smiled and said, "You may be able to find the answer to this question at the martial soul hall." Then she said seriously, "But if I were to say that, apart from the fact that the true body of the martial soul will become stronger, it won't have much effect. Even because of the singularity of soul ring configuration, it actually restricts the development of soul masters." Xueqing added, "This is what I guessed based on the collections of the 7 treasure glass sect. There is a martial soul in the 7 treasure glass sect who is the soul master of the Overlord Sparrow. The first 5 soul rings were all obtained from the Overlord Sparrow." "Is that so?" Meng Yuan looked lost in thought. "Of course, if Brother Meng is interested, he can come to my East Palace frequently when he has time in the future. The books in this collection are mostly solitary items that I have collected. If you have any novel ideas, we can discuss them together, little dream." As he spoke, Xueqing changed the topic and said, "By the way, little brother Meng, do you know what Mr. Meng did last night?" Meng Yuan shook his head and said, "Yesterday, Teacher Yuan said he needed Grandpa's help with some personal matters, and I don't know the specifics." "That's it." At this moment, a guard came from outside. "Your Highness the Crown Prince, I pray for a dream offering." Xueqing smiled and touched Meng Yuan's head, saying, "It seems it's time to say goodbye, little brother Meng. Remember to write a letter to me at the Martial Soul Hall." At this moment, in the living room, Dream Divine Machine is closing its eyes and waiting for its grandson. As soon as Xueqing stepped into the hall, Meng Xinji immediately stood up and saluted, saying, "Your Highness, yesterday you took the liberty of leaving Yuan Air with you. Please do not blame me for any disrespect." Xueqing showed a gentle smile and said, "What's so impolite, Mr. Meng? We're half of the same family now. And I really like Brother Meng. Even if he stays in my Crown Prince's East Palace, it's nothing." After 2 polite words, Meng Xinji left the Crown Prince's East Palace with Meng Yuan. "Grandpa, last night." A hint of excitement flashed in Dream Xinji's eyes. "It's already resolved. Yuaner, you can put away this thing." Speaking, Dream Divine Machine handed a flashy brocade bag to Dream Yuan. Meng Yuan asked in confusion, "Grandpa, what is this?" Meng Xinji said with a serious expression, "This is the sole guide of the old poison Dugu, named Ruyi Baibao bag. This is a storage item given to you by your teacher." Later, Dream Divine Machine said, "After returning home, pack up your things and go to the Martial Soul Hall to find your teacher. He wants to take you to hunt for the first soul ring." Meng Yuan asked with a bitter face, "Grandpa, do I have to go to the Martial Soul City? He wants to stay in the Heavenly Dou Imperial City to brush off the favor of Qianren Snow, and he doesn't want to go see that crazy woman Bibidong so early." Dream Divine Machine also sighed and said, "Yuan, why do I want you to leave? It's just that your momentum is stronger than human strength. Both of your teachers unanimously want you to go to the Martial Soul City. Our dream family's martial soul is extremely unique. Although your martial soul has undergone significant changes in appearance, it still has the attribute of death in essence. The Martial Soul Hall worships the God of Angels, especially for soul masters like us. When you arrive at the Martial Soul City, even with your 2 teachers guarding you, you must remain low-key." Chapter 10. Did Dugu not cool through? You are listening at Novel Full.Audio. 2 nightmare horses pulled the Dream Master and grandson back to the Dream Mansion. And Dream Divine Machine also talked about how he attacked and killed Dugu yesterday. After hearing the ending of Dugu, Meng Yuan also sighed helplessly. If conditions permit, he really wants to make friends with this old monster. Unfortunately, in order to survive better in the future, he must die. Upon hearing that Dugu was killed by Dream Divine Machine, Meng Yuan's eyes lit up. Perhaps even my grandfather's promotion to Douluo may not require the help of the immortal products in the eyes of Ice and Fire Liangyi. Dream Divine Machine said to Dream Yuan, "It's better to go to Martial Soul City. After returning, I will also be locked down for 3 years and see if I can use this opportunity to challenge the title Douluo. I won't be able to take care of you during this time." The Dream family's martial soul nightmare is a very rare and powerful martial soul, and it is also one of the rare death attribute martial souls on the mainland. The biggest secret of nightmare martial soul is that in addition to being able to devour dreams to gain power, it can also connect with one of the opponent's original generals through dreams and devour them. Although the martial soul of Meng Yuan has undergone significant changes due to the influence of his mother, the devouring nature of nightmare has not disappeared, but has shifted to the accompanying flower on the other side of the underworld. If it were in the second part, the master and grandson of the Dream family would definitely be the natural evil soul master. The talent of Dream Divine Machine is not strong, and the reason why he was able to grow into a soul Douluo is due to the unique ability of the martial soul. Underneath the benevolent appearance of this old man, there is a decisive heart to fight. Perhaps it is because this martial soul is too domineering that the fertility rate of the Dream family has always been low, and now only the grandfather and grandson are left. Dugu's death at the hands of the Dream Divine Machine means that his origin has also been devoured by the Dream Divine Machine. Quickly, the carriage arrived at Dream Mansion. After Meng Yuan received his clothes and notes from studying martial souls in Ruyi Baibao, he asked the butler to take him to the martial soul hall. And the Dream Divine Machine didn't want to be idle for a moment. After returning to the mansion, it immediately closed down and launched an attack on the title Douluo. Swallowing the origin of Dugu is not much worse than attaching a soul ring that lasts for 70.80 million years. The Heavenly Dou Imperial City and the Martial Soul Hall are divided into halls. After arriving at the angel statue in the main hall, Meng Yuan discovered that the two title Douluo, Ju and Gui, had been waiting here long ago. Meng Yuan approached respectfully and said, "I have kept the two teachers waiting for a long time." After seeing the arrival of his only disciple, Ju Douluo Yuguan also smiled a little and said, "Don't worry, yesterday you suddenly became a disciple, and we didn't prepare any apprenticeship gifts. We will make up for it for you today." As the words fell, Gui Douluo threw a fist-sized dark green bead to Meng Yuan and said, "This bead is the snake pill condensed by Dugu. Although the old poison fell, it did not disappear. Holding this bead in your hand during cultivation can achieve twice the result with half the effort. Ghost Douluo is completely not afraid of Meng Yuan poisoning." Meng Yuan happily held the bead and said, "Thank you, teacher." Obviously, he didn't expect that the old poison could still leave this thing behind. However, having read extensively since childhood, he also knew the attributes and characteristics of his martial soul, and did not foolishly ask what to do with the poison on the bead. The reason why death attribute martial souls are powerful is that they have strong immunity to various negative effects, and can directly ignore poison attributes. Of course, there are advantages and disadvantages, which also leads to most auxiliary soul skills of martial souls being ineffective for death attributes. Except for the 7 treasures glass pagoda. Yueguan sighed and said, "Yuan, we're afraid we'll have to stay in Dohuang City for an extra day. Yesterday's fight was too intense, and the soul beasts on the outskirts of the forest at sunset were quite frightened. We need to wait until these soul beasts return tonight before we can take you to obtain the first soul ring. After obtaining the soul ring, we will immediately return to the martial soul city." Then the Ghost Douluo ghost said, "Yuan, you go to your room to rest first. I have some things to do with Xueqing." "Yes, teacher." Subsequently, Meng Yuan was led to his room by a deacon. After returning to the room, Meng Yuan began to play with the beads in his hand. Yuan and Gui handed over Dugu inner alchemy to themselves, obviously ruling out all risks. So, I can try using this cheat myself. Although you have not yet obtained the first soul ring, it does not mean that Dream Abyss cannot cultivate. Before breaking through, the soul power cultivated will accumulate on oneself. Being idle is also being idle. It's better to try the efficacy of this bead first. Thinking this way, Yuan held the bead and entered a meditative state. Suddenly, the dark green bead flickered with a strange light. Surrounded by a pitch-black expanse. Yuan looked around in confusion, feeling a bit confused. Suddenly, countless dark green spots gathered in front of him, and then turned into a green-haired old man wearing a grey robe. Now the old man is staring at him with fierce eyes. Damn it! Seeing this figure, Yuan couldn't help but curse. This image is obviously the enemy Dugu. While Yuan was frightened, he also wondered how the soul of this old monster was preserved. Whether it's teacher Ghost Douluo or Grandpa Dream Divine Machine, they are all at the level of masters in researching souls. How could this poison pill still have the remaining soul of Dugu? Dugu's erect pupils were tightly fixed on Yuan, and he asked with a gloomy tone, "Kid, have you figured out how you died?" Yuan pulled out a smile that was even uglier than crying and said, "Senior, please don't joke anymore." Although Dugu looked like this, his soul instinctively trembled and told him that it was not difficult for this guy to kill him. After circling around Yuan, Dugu said in a resentful tone, "It's not too bad for me to have a doll with innate soul power buried with me. TSK, little one, you died unjustly. You know the reason. Wait, senior, should we make a deal?" Yuan's mind quickly turned, and he thought of a card that seemed to be able to control Dugu. Dugu, on the other hand, showed a cat and mouse smile and hugged his shoulder, saying, "Oh. Trading, I would like to see what kind of trading can make me ignore this heinous hatred and give you a chance to live." After the initial shock, Yuan also forced himself to calm down. He took a deep breath and said to Dugu, "If you remember well, do you have a granddaughter?" After speaking, he was grabbed by Dugu's neck. Dugu sneered and said, "Threatening me will only make you die faster. Even now, I won't hide it from you." When practicing, the blue scale snake martial soul will turn against the soul devourer. Without the old man Yen, one cannot live long. It is better to be killed cleanly than to be tortured by toxins. Cough, what if I have a way to relieve this backlash? Dugu released his hand and said expressionlessly, "What's the solution?"